Yo, what's up? It's Rumi. So I launched a product yesterday on Product Hunt. You can see right here on the tweet. But basically, it is a marketplace resource stash. So here's the actual post on Product Hunt. Didn't get that many upvotes. But anyways, it's a kind of curated directory of marketplace resources. So last week I saw a lot of tweets about posts, essays, even some videos from a lot of marketplace domain experts and founders. And I started just bookmarking them all for myself. So I realized that at that point, it probably made sense to try to find a way to share it with other people. And I remembered Startup Stash, which launched on Product Hunt. I'm not sure, maybe a few years ago, but it had 17,000 upvotes, which was pretty crazy. So I thought, why not build a marketplace resource stash? So I used a card, which is a super easy way to create landing pages. You can even create like simple kind of web apps with integrating a landing page in Zapier and Airtable, even payments with like PayPal. So absolutely love cards. So this is a great reason for me to basically just spend time building something else. So I wanted to make a kind of quick video. This is just a screen share without any editing or anything, but to just walk through and show you kind of how I actually built this marketplace resource dash, which you can actually see live. It's on the ThinkBox site right here. But I built it in under 30 minutes. So super simple, great kind of quick build without any coding. And in this video, I'm going to show you how I did that. All right, so as I mentioned, the kind of marketplace resource stash is simply a collection or curated directory of articles, posts, videos, which are all obviously like on URLs. So I'm going to show you really quickly. So here is the dashboard for the ThinkBox website. So you could do this in Card. You can just simply just click on just start a new project. I didn't use any templates or anything, obviously, because I just wanted to put it on the ThinkBox domain. So doing that would just be kind of like a shameless way to drive some traffic and plug the startup studio that I run. Since we do focus on marketplaces, this would be a great kind of resource for other marketplace founders that we could potentially work with or potentially invest in down the road. So here's the kind of the dashboard for the ThinkBox site. So as I mentioned, we just started with like a simple single page, like no templates or anything. So it's just like the dashboard just kind of goes down. So it's a full page, and you just simply right here just kind of add a control break. And so these are the different pages, so like the about. So like you can see down. So I'll just go down to the actual resource stash. So here's like the services page. As you can see, these are all individual pages, but on our dashboard, it's all one. Here's the funds. Here's the kind of marketplace resource directory we built. Here's the main resource page. Another share tribe service page. We'll just keep scrolling down. We'll get there sooner or later. All right, so here we are. So here's a marketplace resource dash. So it is a kind of full page, but as I was kind of finishing up this top page, basically what I did is I would come over here, I would add an element, click on this, and then I would just use this, click on control, and then the type of break. So I wouldn't use, it was just a section break, and then I would just name this resources, because that would be the URL we wanted to thinkbox.io / resource dash. So that's what I would make this. I had already added it though, so I'll just go up here and show you. But that's like, you can see these control breaks right here. So I think it automatically added at the bottom. So yeah, I'm going to delete this so it doesn't mess up the live site. And then we'll get back up to what we were doing. All right, so we're going back up. You can see these are all the individual pages that are linked from those main kind of buttons that were categories on the resource dash. But if you've used Card already before and you're looking at this, as you'll see, it's super simple. And you can probably see why it took less than 30 minutes. So here's a button up here in the very top. So as I mentioned, I'd add the control that would bring down this new kind of page. I would click on this right here, this add an element, and this is a button. So when you do click on that, then as you can see right here, you click down, you can change the labels like back to home. The icon's a left arrow, and then on the actual click from user, that would go back to resources. So that would be to the main resources, as you see. All right. Sometimes card is a little bit slow to load. All right. So there we go. And one thing to mention is this is just a button on the main page. So this is not in its own container. If you haven't used card, I would suggest using containers for when you add each elements. That way you can kind of control not only the contents inside the container, which containers can be default or they can be columns. So if you want to put the contents in a container, say side by side, obviously that would be columns. So like these three kind of buttons for pre-validating idea, building a marketplace, that container, those are in columns. But what I'm clicked on right now, this marketplace resource dash, this is just text in a default container. But one thing why you would want to add containers and not just add text directly from this top to just click on add a text is you want the width to be full screen. You can control the height of it, the padding. So that means like the like over here, the padding, if you did like more padding, so if it wasn't like auto, as you can see these dotted lines, if you say, for instance, you change it to 5, that would open up the space from the top to the button to these. So that would make that space a lot bigger. So you want to use containers to be able to control a lot of the elements, and then also too, the position of them right here, say for instance, like the width. So if I change it from 53, as you can see, like 71, so that brings the text, the width out. So the entire ThinkBox site I set our kind of like default you could think of is 53. So I'm going to go back and set this on 53. We'll get there. There we are. And I use like left alignment on a lot, at least for this text. So all the text in here is left aligned. All right, so you basically add that container. You could click on add this text. So these are two different kind of text boxes. And the reason why I did that is I just want a different font size, and then to make this bold so it stands out since it is like a title. So it's black, the color, it's Arial font, size 3, and the weight's heavy. Pretty much, this is like the standard line spacing and letter spacing and margins and all that. So that way it's consistent with the rest of the site. Right here, so that's fairly straightforward. Right here is kind of where we get into where if you haven't used card, you'll just have to learn how to use it a little bit. But they do have a lot of kind of tips right here. So for instance, it shows you how to bold. And to do that, you can see, so this is just like plain text when you enter it, and that's what shows up over here. For bold, you can see right here, so for like Andreessen Horowitz, you can see like the bold is like 2 asterisks around each of those. So that way that then kind of controls the actual text display. So that's like the bold italic. Like to link, it's fairly straightforward. So for instance, like right here, you can see Andrew Chin, who's like a marketplace expert at Andreessen Horowitz. He has awesome essays, by the way. So he's one of the big reasons why I made this is because he has so much content, and I wanted to be able to kind of curate that and share it with people. So for instance, to link to his Twitter, which I wanted to do on the click so people could reference them, you would just use a bracket on each side of what you actually want to link to, and then without a space, you would just use use these actual parentheses, and then you would put in the actual URL. And one thing too to mention is on the URL. So at the end of the URL, if you want for when people click for that link to open in a new window, you would just use an @blank, and you would just literally add @blank to the end of every URL. So I did that for all the URLs that are linked everywhere on this text, and then the actual within each of these category pages, because I wanted people to be able to view that content and then not have to click back, but they would have the resource dash in the pages in another window. So I didn't want people to leave the site. So that's that right there, that text. And then as I mentioned, these are also containers, these buttons. So what I did was I would just kind of go up here at the top, I would click on that, click on add a container. But the difference is here, instead of it being default, these are columns. So it would start with 2 columns, and then I would click add, and then that automatically sized them to the left being 33%, the middle 34%, and the right 33%. So I set those, and then also down for these are all 3 different containers with 3 columns. So I literally just up here, something cool you can do in Card is if you see on this bottom left, these like 2 boxes, that's basically to make a copy of the element. So since these are all the same and they need to be the same size containers in styling, I just simply duplicated those. What I did within that though is then I added 3 buttons because I couldn't find a way to like add a box as an element and then within a container and then add text within that and make the whole thing clickable. So I simply added buttons. I don't know if that's the ideal way, but it looks fine and it works fine. So I went with that. But I added a button, and so I'm clicked on the left one right now, and you can see idea stage. So that's like the button label, and I'll click on that. And then the URL is the actual, it's the hash and then idea stage. So as I kind of showed you how the full page in the editor then kind of has a section break and like the hash, a label, that's for the new page. So instead of adding a URL on this, since I didn't want to do like the full URL, I just did the hash on here because that's the best way to do it on Card if you're linking to different sections within the site. So that way, as I showed you earlier, like linking to Andrew Chen, you wouldn't want to do that for like thinkbox.io/ like marketplace resources idea stage. You just simply right here, just use this. And you can change like the app, like hovers, all that kind of stuff. But what I did is I did have to change over here in the appearance. Hopefully, yeah, there we go. All right, so the default was like a solid button, so I changed this to outline, and then I just want to use a label only. So on that top back button that I showed you at the top above the text, it was a label and icon, but for this, since I wanted it to be like a clickable kind of square with text in it and the whole thing clickable, I just use like the label only. So change that, change the outline to black and the label to also black text, and then I changed the width to make it a lot wider. And the height to 5, and so that's pretty much the button. So I had added that one, and then since this was a container with like 3 kind of empty spaces, I just simply went down here and I just click on these 2 kind of, I guess you call it a squares, but I just click make a copy of this element twice, so that way I had these 3 buttons on this top row. Then from there I simply edited, like as you'll see over here, I just then edited the label, so I made it pre-validating idea and then linked to the actual kind of page that it would be. So that's how I did. I created all these 6 buttons, which are actually kind of like categories for the resources. So since we are curating a bunch of resources, I just broke down different categories for marketplaces. So like idea stage of marketplaces, pre-validating idea, building a marketplace MVP. Of course, you can read the rest. But it made sense to do it by categories. And these are typically categories that people will be trying to find resources when they're learning about something, if they're building their marketplace, looking for help, or having issues. So this is the best way for me to organize the content, in my opinion. And then I also just added below in this container, so that way it could just kind of make it all like size appropriately. I just added a text right here that was like rather viewed all in list view, so that way it'd just be a full page view. That would also create instead of just like these independent page or specific pages with just those resources. So I wanted it to be easy to navigate and view all the resources, and for not people to kind of feel like they're getting stuck with just clicking on one category and just seeing that and having to go through everything just to see it all. So as you can see right here, here's a good example of linking. So earlier I mentioned that you use brackets around the text that you want to be clickable, and then use a parentheses with the actual URL. But since it is on the same site, it's just a different section, I use resource stash all for that, which is the view all page. So there it is right there. Now, as you can kind of starting to see, everything's in different containers. So this right here is a different container too, and this is why it looks a little bit different is it's a default container. So it's not the column container as the above. This is full screen. You can kind of see all these settings up here. One thing I did do, since it is kind of like a light gray background, the other containers at the top of the page had none, so no background. But for this, I wanted to stand out a little bit is in a different section on the page. So I just use a different color. So you can see the FA, and that's why it's this kind of like light, super light gray color. I mean, that's like FFFFF is white, so this is pretty much like the next, I guess like the lightest shade of gray that you can use on here. So within this container, here's the text right here. So this is just all, you can see, I'll click on it. So this is just all text. Since it's all bold, I did use those two asterisks around at the very front and the very ending of it. And then you can see in here, there is a link to Studio Time, which is another, it's a marketplace that I started. So that's that. That's just text, and that's not like grouped with this or anything. But below that, you can, I clicked over here, so like add an element, and I just clicked on, instead of a button, I clicked on, I added a form. And when you add a form, it's basically just like right here, you can see this kind of like green box around what I'm clicked on. And what we can see the settings on, but you can select different types. So like they have like a contact type. So that's like if you have like a contact page on here, you would have that. So it has like the open kind of fields people can enter text on. But you can also do sign up, which is pretty cool. So you can do a subscribe for an email list. So I just clicked on sign up. I clicked on via MailChimp, which is, I just have a MailChimp account for ThinkBox because we do periodically send out newsletters. So for that, I just clicked on MailChimp, and then I got the API key from our MailChimp dashboard, which is super easy to do. I literally copied it, pasted it in here, and then pasted in the list ID, which you'll see here. So that way, when people enter their email, obviously it goes to our MailChimp account and the right or correct list ID. So it's very, very easy to add a email sign up right here using the form. You can change the fields. So I didn't really need like name, full name, company, any of that kind of stuff. I just literally just want an email, just make it super easy. So I didn't select any of these. I did change the text on the subscribe from the default it was. On clicked it's default, so it just submits. I didn't want to like take people off the page or anything because I didn't think that'd be a good user experience. And then you can see the appearance. So I did kind of change this just a little bit, just to make it as best as I could. And then down here, so we're actually at the very bottom of this first kind of like resource stash page. I just added a container. As you can see right here, it's the height of the container. Well, first off, it's a default container. The height is auto, and so over here, it's not like as tall as the other containers. And it's simply text right here. So the way that this is actually the footer for every other page on the ThinkBox site, which I don't know if this is the ideal way to make a footer and card. If you are a card expert, I guess you could say, and there's a better way to do this, just let me know. But I literally just copy and paste for every single page that I make, which is just like this endless page with section breaks for every different page. I just copy and paste this text in here. So it's like home, about, company, services, fund, and then resources, and then the contact. And so on the contact, it pops out like an email client and it pre-fills the contact at thinkbox.io. So that is this entire kind of like main page, I guess, or like the actual kind of product really is what it is. So you can see it right here. So this is live. So I just took you through how I made this resource dash kind of like the main product page. And this is at thinkbox.io / and then I guess that's the hash and then the resource dash. So we'll just click on this right now, right? So it's not many resources on this on an idea stage. We can use another, for example. So we'll use like building supply and demand. So every single one of those categories has its own page. And I'll show you right here. So we clicked on idea stage. So the way that I actually made all those pages was I just went down here and I started adding, as you can see, like it's the idea stage page. It's a section break for it. I just named it like idea stage. which then we'll go back over here and you can see that that's the actual URL I'm highlighting up here. So I did that. Here's the button that we have on every single page, and this main page, the labels are just different in the routing. So I just literally went up to the top one. I see this in the very bottom left, the kind of control on the settings for these is to duplicate that element. So I did that, and then when it was here, I dragged it down here. I just simply changed the text on that. So as I kind of showed you earlier on the different buttons, it's like back to resource dash with the left arrow, and then the resource dash right here is a hash, and then resource dash. So that takes you back to the main resource dash. All right, so cards kind of, there we go. All right, now, so that's the button. That's not within a container, but everything else on this page is. So once again, I went up at the top, basically duplicated that container, and that was down here, and then I just changed the text in it. So what I did is it had a label too, and the label was different, but I just literally just typed in idea stage resources, and that is the actual label on this first button, or the first category of the resource dash. So I use idea stage, and that's the same, the actual font size as the main kind of text label on the resource dash. And it's the same way that we are going to see. You can see down here on the category and page for pre-validating marketplace resources, want to keep that consistent. So I basically just created that first page, and then once I did this, then I can just keep all of the font or the text sizes, weights, everything just consistent just by duplicating it. So here's below that the text, and this is the actual contents of the resource dash. So this is like basically why people would come and click and check out the resource dash, is because it curates all this content. And so I use this like emoji. I just copy and paste an emoji in here for writing, because these are all written content. So for instance, this one kind of shows up on here as just how to come up with a great marketplace idea. So there's a great article on ShareTribe's Marketplace Academy. So I went and found that, which is, I had bookmarked all these previously, and then I just pasted it in here. And then I literally just did the same exact thing for all of these different articles. And then below that, I just put in a text on every single page, like, want to suggest an article or video for us to add here, tweet at us, and then we're ThinkBox Makes on Twitter. That way, obviously, people would see that, hey, we're on Twitter, and hopefully when people tweet at us on Twitter, then other people would see it. That'd be a great way to just generate some interest around it, and we would also get their tweet on the article, post, essay, or video that they want us to add, and we could actually add that. So that would help us too. So that's like an easy way to kind of like crowdsource this, I guess you could say. So that's all the contents on the idea stage. Still going to add some more to it. We do have this kind of like email sign up on every specific page for the categories. So I just duplicated that from the main page, and then also the same thing from the footer, because of course the footer's on there. So I duplicated that. So we'll go down so you can see right here on the dashboard. Basically every single category has its own page, and that starts with adding this kind of section break with it's like, I guess you could call it, its label being right here, see pre-validating idea. That's basically like the URL that's going to show up. So it's like thinkbox.io / and then hash pre-validating idea. And that takes you to this page. And then I just basically copied the previous page, changed the text, and then I went through every single one of those the different categories and did the same thing. So the only really difference is when some of these different categories have video, and it's super simple. It's just all text, and it's an emoji. So it's a lot easier than it looks. So here's all, this kind of breaks down from written to video. So I won't be that redundant kind of going through and just showing each page or trying to replicate them for you, because it's honestly not that hard, and the video would probably be longer than it would actually take you, even if you're trying to make this for the first time. Some of the things like the email newsletter, the exact kind of like styling might be a little bit challenging, might take you an hour, but I would assume it wouldn't take you longer than that. And then one of the last categories on here, so we'll go to the live, right? We'll go back to the resource so you can see this is a great reference point. So we have marketplace tools. So not only do we want to curate some of the best content, but also tools that are specific to marketplaces. So to have all these, which are just links to different tools that are kind of some of my favorites, and then some that other marketplaces and marketplace founders use. This is all just text. These aren't different sections and anything crazy. I literally just went through and typed a text to each of these and linked them. And then once again, we have like the email newsletter sign up and then the footer. So that's that. As I showed you or mentioned kind of briefly when I was at making that main page, one of the things that I wanted to add to make it easier for everyone to view all the resources at once is this like list view. And so here it is, right? So this is the product, is Marketplace Resource Dash, as you know now. And it's basically broken down content up here in these buttons. And then this is just like an endless page of all the content broken down by these different kind of titles, which are like the labels for each of the individual pages. So it's just like an endless page right here. And once again, we have the email newsletter sign up and the footer. So how I made that was I just added another section break, called this resource dash all, because I thought that'd be a good URL for all this to live on. You can see it right here that I'm highlighting. So as hard as this is, I literally just went in and just manually copy and pasted all of these on this new page. So I just created a container and then just literally just copy and pasted them. You could probably honestly just duplicate the containers and then drag them to organize them all here. But I just copied the text and then pasted in a new container and then duplicated that and then pasted it in. So this was on this page, just making sure everything was just formatted correctly. And this probably took the longest, honestly. The actual making the main resources dash right here was super straightforward. So that's actually everything. Took you kind of through, first off, what the Marketplace Resource Dash is, why I made it, and how I made it using Card. And hopefully you can make your own kind of resource dash, for whatever different, I guess you could say, like category vertical you want to. I mean, you can make one for like resource dash for marketing people have made, for startups, for like, here's like a resource dash for, how to talk to customers, or like even like curate your own directories of like music or art or, recipes, whatever you want. I think there's a lot of cool different kind of similar type, resource dashes you can make pretty much for any kind of hobby or interest. But this is a kind of a demo or tutorial on how to use Card. Once again, Card is amazing. I spend way too much time using Card, and it just allows me to pretty much just like take any idea that I have to an actual kind of landing page or product like very, very quickly. And obviously, like, this is without coding. So hopefully you found this useful. I'm actually going to link in this kind of video to someone on Twitter, Ben Tossel. So he is a kind of a maker, someone that builds a lot of products without coding. And he has a pretty cool course on this. Like, I'm not getting paid for this or anything. I'm not like a card expert like he is. I just want to make a video. Since there are a few people on Facebook that asked about how I made it on a marketplace group that I posted in when I launched this. So I'll link to that. I would highly recommend that. If you have any questions on Card, want to know how to get started, take like a quick course on how to pretty much build like a lot of different types of startups really quickly, portfolios, any of that kind of stuff, just click on that and support him, because he's amazing and he's definitely super helpful and will make sure that whatever you want to build, you're actually able to build and launch. So thank you so much, and comment below if you have any questions and I'll try to answer them. See you.